Welcome to Flagler in Focus, the podcast where we dive deep into all things Flagler County. I am your host, Karen Callahan, and with each broadcast, we'll explore the people, places, and events of our fantastic community, from interviews with local experts, community leaders, and people with stories to share. We are your go-to source for staying connected to what's happening in Flagler County. And today, I'm very excited. We have with us Flagler County Fire Rescue Chief Mike Tucker. Hello, Chief.
Hey, Karen, how are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll get started with you just introducing yourself to the listeners.
Well, obviously, my name is Michael Tucker, and I'm the Fire Chief for Flagler County Fire Rescue. Been here about 3.5 years now. So I've learned my way around the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really enjoying, the opportunity to lead such a professional group of men and women. They do a great job, day in and day out, and it makes it a lot of fun to come to work.
Absolutely. Well, we all love you here at the county. So how did you get started in the field?
Oh, well, believe it or not, I stumbled into it.
You fell?
I did. I really did. This was not a direction I was planning on going.
Mm-hmm.
When I came out of high school, I was actually planning on going into seminary, and that was sort of my vision in life. And a friend of mine convinced me to get into the fire service as sort of a way to work my way through seminary, and I just never sort of looked back. And now as of this month, I'm in my 40th year.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing it a while now.
Well, it sounds like you had a heart for service no matter what.
Absolutely. And it's been a phenomenal career. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Exactly.
You look back at 40 years and you think, wow, what a ride.
So you're not originally from Flagler County, are you?
I am not.
Mm-hmm.
My father was in the Air Force when I was growing up, so we bounced around a lot, and he was a little bit of a nomad.
Mm-hmm.
So even when we got out of the Air Force, we tended to move around quite a bit. But most of my life has been in Central Florida. I grew up in Leesburg and graduated from Leesburg High School.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you are a Floridian.
As much as anybody can be, anymore. I've raised a couple Floridians.
Yeah. Me too. Ditto. Although I've been here, I've lived in the States since I was 5, so I guess I kind of don't even remember the first 5 years of my life that much. But
we won't hold it against you.
No, gotta look. But I love the state.
It's a beautiful state.
Yeah. So how'd you come to Flagler County?
Well, at the time, when the position was announced, I was actually leading the Florida State Fire College.
Okay.
My position there was Superintendent, Bureau Chief of the Florida Fire Standards and Training, which is up underneath the State Fire Marshal's office.
Mm-hmm.
And in that role, I was actually responsible for oversight of all 532 fire departments within the state of Florida, all roughly 40,000 volunteer and career firefighters in the state. So at that point in time, when anybody got certified in anything in the fire service in the state of Florida, my signature was on the bottom of their certificate. And so I was working at the state level. I've been doing that for about 8 years. It was a lot of fun because I had actually started my career 40 years ago as a student at the Florida State Fire College.
Oh, really?
And so, here I am, 30 some years later at that point in time, responsible for the Florida State Fire College. And, I used to think the guy in the corner office was a pretty smart guy. Come to find out he really was an idiot.
What?
Yeah. So it was pretty cool to have started out as a student and then be responsible for leading it. And Florida is the third largest fire service in the United States.
Oh, I had no idea.
It absolutely is. And that's by behind Texas and California. And so there's a couple other states that are close, but we say we're the third largest. Nobody can produce anything to say we're not, so we're going to stick with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what sets Flagler Fire Rescue apart from a typical fire department?
Well, obviously, there as a county agency, there's things that we're responsible for that we have to do. Statutorily, we're responsible for providing emergency medical services, transport services, in the county. That we don't get to hand that to anybody else. We don't get to look at the state government and say, we don't want to do it. You're going to have to do it. That is our responsibility. In addition, we're also responsible for making sure that fire services are provided countywide, at some level. So that's where we're a little bit different than municipal or special district fire departments. So we have to do it, and so it's something we take very seriously, and we lean into that responsibility and try to do it to the best of our ability.
Excellent. Tell me a little bit about if someone was interested in becoming a firefighter. What's your recruitment process like for firefighters?
Well, recruiting firefighters right now across the entire United States is a challenge. Everybody is having some difficulty, whether it be firefighters, EMTs, or paramedics. Years ago, it was, you would have one position open, you would get 30, 40, 50 people apply. Some departments would have hundreds, to apply, but that's not the case, right now. So we're actually come at it from multiple different directions. Obviously, our desire is to hire somebody that is certified as a firefighter and an EMT or paramedic, hire them on day one, and then we put them to work. We're having to do some things differently now where, we're hiring maybe individuals that are paramedic certified but don't have the fire standards, and then we put them through fire school, and then they become employable at that point, or usable at that point in time. And then we're also trying to work within the academies to get the message out when we're hiring, and to get them in that way. And then we've also, something very unique in Flagler County is we have a high school-based fire academy.
Yeah, let's dive deep into that.
Absolutely.
So what's going on with that?
Well, it's one of those programs where a student gets into it in the freshman year, and by the time they graduate from high school, they are certified as a firefighter and an emergency medical technician. And that is, if they waited to do that on the outside after graduation, that would be about a year's worth of training that they would have to do beyond. Mm-hmm. And then that would probably cost them about another $8,000 to $10,000.
Oh, wow.
So these young men and women are graduating high school. They've got the training. They do not have to pay any of that money. And they are employable essentially on day one or very shortly after. So it's something that has worked exceptionally well, for us. We've been doing it for several years now and have started to produce the fruits, or harvest the fruits, of our labors. The challenge is that it starts in a freshman year and goes to their senior year, so it's about 4 years before we see those individuals, as employable candidates. But it has proven to be very beneficial for us. We now have 11 individuals on the department that have come through that program. 2 of those individuals have just stepped into our rescue supervisor roles and are serving as paramedics. So they are phenomenal individuals. So the quality of individuals we've gotten out of the program have been just over the top.
Yeah, I love your team over there. You have a great group.
Oh, absolutely.
Fine young men and women.
They do. They are.
So, Chief, I know that we've implemented some new safety features a few months ago. We were testing out some camera systems on the ambulances. Can you tell us about that?
Well, one of the reasons that we've gone to the camera system, and it's a 360-degree camera system. So the driver in the rescue is able to see what's going on directly in front of them, over the edge of the hood, down the sides and at the back of the ambulance, and also inside the patient compartment in the ambulance. Mm-hmm. And we did that for a variety of reasons. There's a lot going on around an ambulance, when they're moving to and from emergencies. So the 360 camera sort of gives that driver, the rescue, that ability to see what's going on in their blind spots. So as opposed to just having to rely upon the mirrors, they use this camera as an additional, piece of a tool to observe what's going on the side. And then if they're in a situation, especially at the hospital, where they've got to back into, because one of our hospitals, that's the only way they can unload the patients is to back into the unload spots. And we don't like people backing without a backup person, mm-hmm. without a set of eyes. And mm-hmm. obviously, the paramedic in the back of the ambulance is focused on patient care. So they can't step out when we're backing up to be the backup mm-hmm. person.
Absolutely.
So this camera gives that driver, that ability to see what's behind them. And additionally, we've placed one into the patient compartment, area so that they can see what's going on, with the paramedic as well, because there is been a rash over the past couple of years of paramedics being assaulted, in the back of the ambulance. And some of the paramedics have had their careers ended. So this is just another degree of safety, so that the driver is well aware of what's going on all around, the rescue.
Recently, you've been in our fire rescue has been in the news because we have commissioned a new FireFlight.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was fun. I was there. So you want to talk about new FireFlight?
Well, FireFlight is a unique tool. Mm-hmm. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, and nobody has been able to prove me wrong. And so FireFlight is the only helicopter in the state of Florida that does what it does. Mm-hmm. First of all, it's fire department based. We do air medical with it. We do wildfire, suppression. We do law enforcement support, and we do offshore search and rescue with it in support of the Coast Guard, from time to time. Mm-hmm. There are other helicopters in the state that do a couple of those various missions, but we're the only one that does 4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we've been able to, since 2000, the early 2000s, FireFlight has been in operation. The original platform, has been in operation, and it's been a phenomenal tool, in fighting wildfires. Most of the time, it actually gets to the fires before the crews can get to the fires. It moves water faster than the crews, on the ground can move water, and it also keeps a lot of firefighters out of the woods. Because believe it or not, the woods are not a safe place to be. But, between the lions, tigers, and bears, and everything in the woods, there's the potential for falling trees and falling debris and stepping in holes and twisting ankles and all kinds of things. So FireFlight, keeps those fires small and manageable until the crews can get them quicker or with a more capable. So the fire is actually manageable when they get to it, as opposed to allowing it to grow to a very large before they can arrive there. So since its inception, it has dropped millions, almost 3 million gallons of water, on fires, and lots of foam. And we have chased, supported law enforcement a lot. And obviously transport a lot of medical patients to hospitals. So it's had a major impact on the safety of the citizens. And then, we got 24 years of usage, actually, out of the old platform.
That's amazing.
It was. And, a lot of that testament goes to our chief mechanic and director of operations, Todd Whaley, who kept that thing flying, just immaculately. The good news is he was a pilot in addition to being a mechanic. So he had a higher level of desire to make sure it worked properly. And, he had to fly it after every time that he worked on it. So he was very, very thorough, in his work. But he kept that platform flying for a very long time. And we were able, back in August to get the new helicopter, place it into service. And it has already, been very busy, between the air medical and the law enforcement support and even some search and rescue work offshore. So it's a great tool, and we're very happy to have it.
Excellent. Well, the other day, on behalf of Flagler County government, I posted a poll on LinkedIn, and I want to see if you know the answer to this trivia question.
Okay.
So, do you know how the Bambi bucket got its name? Was it named after the deer, the animated Disney deer? Was it named after a waitress in a small Illinois town where firefighter frequented? Or was it just randomly named by the inventor himself?
I'm going to go for the inventor.
You are correct. Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
I must have missed that poll.
Yeah, it's on LinkedIn.
So.
I always thought it was named after the deer, and then some people said, no, it's named after a waitress. But no, the inventor apparently... randomly, the marketing person asked, what should we name him? And on a whim, he said Bambi Bucket because it sounded cool, and then it stuck. So that being said, do you want to explain what the Bambi Bucket is?
Well, the Bambi Bucket carries right at 200 gallons of water. And the pilot from his seat, by himself in the helicopter can control, releasing the water, at an appropriate time. He's also the individual who picks that water up, from a static water support source somewhere, that he can find. And then takes it to the site of the fire, and delivers it. When the challenge is, when you look at the water coming out of the Bambi bucket, it sort of looks like it's raining a little bit, and it might be okay to be underneath that. But I can tell you, when 200 gallons of water is falling from the sky, you do not want to be underneath it.
No, I would assume not.
So there's a lot of coordination that that pilot, when we're dropping water and moving water like that, the pilot is in communication with the ground crews, to make sure that they're out of the way when that water, is coming in. So even though it looks like it's sprinkling, I can tell you when it hits the ground, it is not sprinkling at all.
I would imagine, because even sometimes in a hotel shower, if you hit the wrong pressure, sometimes it could be painful. So yeah. I can only imagine what the Bambi bucket can do.
Very true.
Oh my goodness. When I was at the ceremony for FireFlight for the decommissioning and commissioning, you spoke of some outstanding numbers and metrics from your department. Can you share some of those numbers with us today?
Well, obviously we did talk about some great numbers, at the commissioning ceremony, and mostly because we're regulated by the FAA in that world, we have to track all of those statistics. That's just federally mandated. But when the rest of the operation, we track those statistics, as well. And that is one of the things that since myself and Chief Sales, arrived here, we've really tried to begin to drill in on our performance metrics and identifying what they are, how do we measure them, what are the improvements, what are the changes, from year to year. And, we're beginning a new fiscal year and completing the previous fiscal year. So we've run through those numbers. And, this year we finished actually running 19,514 calls, serving the citizens of Flagler County. So that is about a 3% increase. I shouldn't say about, it's exactly a 3% increase.
Oh, wow.
Over the previous year's call volume. And what is interesting about that is, when I got here, we started to look at the historical numbers before we arrived, and we were hanging right about 2 to 2.3% increase in call volume from year to year to year. This year is a 3%, increase. Yeah, and we don't see that number in the foreseeable future is going to change. We're going to continue to increase in call volume. Obviously, the more people are moving here, that's going to drive call volume. The population is aging in place. That's going to drive call volume. Some of the individuals that are graduating high school and becoming adults themselves, young males 20 to 25 are a population, demographic that's very prone to trauma injuries. I think it has to do with the fact that we're not real smart when we're about that age. We really try some crazy stuff. So
oh my goodness.
So obviously the groups that are here are going to continue to drive our call volume, but the new people coming in are going to drive call volume as well. And EMS, Emergency Medical Services, just continues to be the lion's share, of what we do. So for us, it's about 78% of our work is medical, in nature. That again, that's not going to slow down, with our medical industry or a situation the way it is in the country right now, our health services. People sometimes reach out to us to sort of do some of that primary care kind of stuff they expect us to do. So we end up being called a lot of times to just try to give people guidance. It's a lot. They think of it as triage. Sometimes they think that we have the magic answers, and we don't. But we can help them navigate. What are some of their next steps are, and we certainly would. If there's ever a doubt, in anybody's mind, should I call 911 or not call 911? Just call 911.
Absolutely.
We would rather you call us and not need us than need us and not call us. So it's a whole lot easier to send everybody home, than it is to get somebody there, in a timely manner. And that's also a area where our community paramedics, can plug into, as well. So some of our more senior population, Tracy and Rob, are able to come alongside of them. And especially when they finish up, they come out of a hospital or they finish with doctor's appointments and they're just very confused, about the medicines they need to be taking, the times of day, what are their next steps. When the doctors release you, they give you lots of medicine and lots of instruction, but it's overwhelming. So Tracy and Rob are able to come alongside and sort of help them navigate that and maybe even plug them into some social services, as well. So the medical aspect of our job is not going to slow down anytime soon. I anticipate that's going to probably increase a lot, over the next couple of years. So one of the big things that's coming down the pike, obviously community paramedicine in Flagler County is recognized as one of the trendsetters, in that area. We get calls and visits from other counties on a continual basis who want to come ride with us, see how we do things, ask us to come there, do presentations, at some of the smaller conferences. But another thing that is coming down the pike is mobile integrated health. And, and that's a little more of that primary care.
What is that?
Well, it's a growing field that a lot of people haven't quite figured out what it is because it's going to mean a lot of different things to different people. One county may handle the mobile integrated health this way, and another county may handle it a totally different way. So you sort of have to figure it out for your community, your demographics. But, some of it is about bringing doctors into the community, nurses into the community. A couple of years ago, we facilitated some Plus Bus events with Flagler Health. And they brought in doctors and did some medical visits with patients out in the west side of the county and up in the Hammock area. So it's just about trying to be the gap between the individual feels sick, but they don't know where to go to next. So that's going to be an emerging trend in our industry and trying to figure it out.
Interesting. So throughout the year, I know my team works in tandem with yours to create various fire safety tips and what have you. I know in earlier October, there was a fire safety week, and throughout the year, around times where people are using fireworks and celebrating, you often send out a lot of messaging. So do you want to touch upon some fire safety tips?
Well, obviously prevention is key. That's really what our messaging is about. It's expensive to respond to fires, but it's a lot cheaper to not even have them on the front end. But that is a challenge, for us, to get that messaging out, because a lot of times the incidents that we get called to, people weren't necessarily thinking of the cascading effects or the events that will result from what they're about to do. So we try to get that messaging out there on the front end, about, learn not to burn, stop, drop, and roll, don't do, fireworks, leave the fireworks shows to the pros.
I remember stop, drop, and roll.
It's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
But it still works, so if we can get that prevention message out there, whether it be, New Year's Eve, whether it be July 4th, whether it be Fire Prevention Week, if we can keep incidents from happening, then the community is safer. So
absolutely.
The father of the American Fire Service was Benjamin Franklin, and he's he's famous for quoting, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure."
That makes sense. Or Smokey the Bear, wasn't there a Smokey the Bear that day, or he turned a certain amount of years old? I saw a meme rolling around that said, when I was 5 years old, Smokey the Bear said only I could prevent forest fires. Why I was chosen, I'll never know.
I like that one.
Gave me chills. I am the chosen one. I shall prevent. Yeah. I will, Smokey. I will. So,
yeah. Well, Smokey is proof that you can have a great message. You can carry it for year after year after year, but we still have forest fires.
Exactly.
And most of the time, I shouldn't say most, a lot of the times they are actually started by human, accidents.
So, Chief, are you still teaching CPR classes?
We do teach CPR classes.
Okay.
First Saturday of every month at the Emergency Operations Center. They can be found on our website, and they're relatively cheap. Right now they're about $5 a card. And that's another area of almost, it's like prevention, but it's early activation, of the chain of survival. One obviously being early recognition of the signs and symptoms, but when there's a cardiac arrest, having somebody who's trained in doing CPR is critical. We recently have had a case where an individual was on the pickleball court, suffered a cardiac arrest.
Oh, my.
Obviously, the bystanders activated 911, but the individual's friend immediately initiated CPR. Okay. And CPR buys us minutes until we can get on scene. And then we can do the things that we do that involve, electricity and medications and all of that advanced stuff. But CPR is foundational. And as much as we can teach CPR in the community, we think it's a great opportunity to just continue to do it.
Is it free, or is there a small cost to it?
But yeah, there is a charge to it, but it's a nominal amount. It's just to cover the cost of us providing the service. But it's definitely well worth it, and it's really important to remind people that there is no expiration on a CPR card. When you're given that card, it has a recommended renewal date, but it is not an expiration date.
I didn't know that. I thought I recall having to take it every 2 to 3 years.
Well, they really want you to take it every 2 to 3 years because there are changes.
To freshen up.
Yeah, there are changes. And there is something that's a very significant change that will not be realized by the individuals that we teach CPR to. But years ago, not that long ago, actually, they taught us to, when we show up at the rescues and the fire trucks, we sort of sweep in, grab the patient, throw them on the stretcher, and we drive away real fast, to the hospital. One of the changes that the American Heart Association is directing us to do now is to get on scene and actually spend 20 minutes on scene, working that cardiac arrest, doing the defibrillations and the intubations and the medications, and to get everything done right there. Because when we move the patient, there's a lot of times the CPR gets stopped and then it gets started. And when you try to restart the heart, it's behind, and you've got to get the pump reprimed. And so people will notice now when we show up on a cardiac arrest event, you're not going to see us just grab the patient and drive away. We're going to spend about 20 minutes on scene, and believe it or not, we have begun to see some pretty significant results from it.
Oh, that's good to know.
We're right around that 16, 17-minute mark, and then we're getting what we call ROSC, which is return of spontaneous circulation, is coming back, So
how brilliant.
It's amazing, I'm one of those, old paramedics that likes to do it the old way. I'm sort of stuck in my ways. So to see these new things get, pushed out here to the field, and the American Heart Association wanted to change the way we do things, you sort of go into them reluctantly, but when you see it, it's working, So we just want to encourage people that we're doing a lot. So just trust, the fact that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. I think, again, and Karen, you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, is the fact that, Flagler County Fire Rescue is staffed with competent, capable professionals, and I mean, I have a heart for every single one of them. Watching them do what they do and be so really good at it is amazing. So I just, most of the time, I feel like I just need to stay out of the way and let them do, what they do.
You have a great team. At the end of September, I was deployed to Dixie County for Hurricane Helene, and you and a few people from Fire Rescue from our county were there as well. And it's just an inspiring bunch. You have a really great team with you that truly care about the community, and it's obvious with their servitude mentality. They're doing it because they are service oriented. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And what I think they're finding out is how many people I know across the state because of my previous roles. So I was sort of kind of getting, these intermittent feedbacks, as well. And they mirrored exactly what you just said.
Okay, Chief.
Bring it.
What's the most memorable call you've ever responded to?
Believe it or not, I was actually working for Reedy Creek Fire Department, which is the department that covers Walt Disney World, Epcot, and it used to be, MGM Studios.
Oh, yeah, they call it Hollywood Studios now.
Yep, they do. They changed that after
I remember when it was called MGM.
So that was a few moons ago. But I had an incident that I was called to for a child that had fallen out of a stroller. And as I was moving, with the Disney Fire Department, everything is done behind scenes.
Yeah.
So we were behind scenes, and another call came in relatively close, to where I was at. And I'm not going to go into a lot of the details on the call just because it's, you would have to do a little bit of editing with some of the graphics. But I will say that the incident that I was called to initially was not the incident that I walked to eventually. And I ended up being handed a baby that had just been born.
Oh, my goodness.
When I say just been born, I mean just
imagine being born at Disney World.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you look back, and you'll hear it referred to as Princess Jasmine.
Oh.
Born in Tomorrowland at the Magic Kingdom.
That is so iconic.
And the footage of me leaving the ambulance with Princess Jasmine in my arms actually was on Oprah Winfrey. So they had news footage of me running, almost literally running from the ambulance into the hospital because I did not want to have this baby with me.
Oh my goodness.
Anymore. So that's one of the more memorable calls, that I can talk about.
And the most memorable place on earth.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So just proof that sometimes when we respond to incidents, what we think we're walking into is not what we get.
The irony from a stroller to a newborn.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we love you, and we love Deputy Chief Sales. So if you and Chief Sales were able to have any fictional character you want as your deputy fire chief sidekick, who would it be and why?
I would probably have to choose the Roadrunner.
Beep, beep.
Yeah, beep, beep. And I would say the why would be the fact that he no matter what gets thrown at him, he just keeps doing what he does.
Water off a duck's back.
He just keeps
off a road
going fast. Beep beep, and he's right on out of there, and he keeps coming back for more.
Yeah, Wiley keeps trying, and it doesn't faze him ever.
Yeah. And believe me, there are days in the fire department I wish I had somebody that wouldn't phase like that.
Yeah. Beep, beep.
But so that would be. I haven't asked Chief Sales that obviously, but maybe we listen to the podcast.
Next time we do a fire rescue podcast, we'll have Chief Sales on.
Yeah, I tell you what, Chief Sales he's a phenomenal addition to the organization. Since our arrival, there's been components of the organization I've had to truly focus on, and a lot of the cultural, more the strategic stuff, and Deputy Chief Sales has been able to focus on all of the operational and the technical aspects, of the organization, so I can get my head up and look at the horizon and figure out where we're going, what we need to do, and when we need to do it, and he just makes things happen, and probably one of the most upstanding human beings you'll ever meet.
Absolutely. I agree. I concur. I think many of us do. One last question.
Sure.
How do you stay motivated during challenging times, especially after tough calls or what have you?
I think at least the way I personally stay motivated is I continue to pull back on my purpose in life. And I truly believe that we're put on this earth to serve each other.
Absolutely.
And if we spend more time serving each other, then we don't have time to get into the petty stuff that happens from time to time. And focusing on that purpose, when we get knocked off of our horse and we get knocked back down, that's the foundation. Our purpose is the fabric of our being. So I continue to lean into that. And just trust that, that I'm going to have to get back up, and I'm going to have to do the next right thing to make sure that my purpose is complete, and then I go home and I boo-hoo to my wife, and she reminds me that I'm supposed to get back in the saddle and do it all over again.
Well, thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
It's been a great conversation. Thank you for coming.
Al, thanks for the invitation.
So for further information on Flagler County Fire Rescue, you can visit us at flaglercounty.gov. Until next time.